it should end somewhere over here. Would you agree with that? See that green projection line? It should be the same length, okay? A really easy way to check this, if you're not confident, because these are kind of new, if you're not confident with this, is you can touch off on the farthest corner to the side and pull up with this object track. Go. Work.
Why does they go with those on?
There we go. This object snap tracking. So this little green line, what you're going to do is just touch off on that corner, and now that length has to be how long this thing is, right? Because I've referenced it from the other view. So at this point, I'm going to go up 1. You see this guy here? It tells me that this is a width of 1. And then again, I'm going to go back this way. I'm just going to touch off on that corner and then click. And this guy should be that long. So I don't really need this line anymore. I'm just going to take that guy out. So there's my top view. Now obviously not complete, but you kind of get the picture that this is the same length as the front view. So as I'm looking at this, I notice that I have this 2 inches that goes over, 2 inches that goes over here, and then there's a corner. And remember, everything that's in a 2-dimensional shape is actually going to flatten out. There's no depth, so all you're seeing is like pancakes, right? So this guy is going to have a line that represents that edge right there, because again, there's no depth. It's just an edge that's, a corner that's represented by a line. So I'm going to go ahead and put another line in there. Now I could measure over from here 2 inches, would you agree? Or I could come down here and I could just touch off on this guy, and see that guy? That object snap tracking is really useful at this point, all right? So I'm just gonna hit that little intersect snap, and I can put this up wherever. I'll just trim it off. There's another way to do that, but I'll show you that in a second. Okay. So again, if you're just putting this in, I know that there's a corner there, so I'm gonna touch off at the corner, pull up slowly until I hit that line. It's going to give me that green intersect snap. And then I can just put that guy however high and I can trim it off. Okay. So if I can get rid of that line, that is the top section with the corner that's showing in the top view. Now there's one more thing about this that I got to put in. I know that there's this corner down here underneath. But obviously there's some material in the way, so I wouldn't see that corner, but I have to represent it. And you guys know that already, that is where a hidden line comes in. So 1 of 2 ways to attack that. You can either go to your hidden layer, or you can draw it and move it. It's totally up to you how you want to do it. But I can, once again, I'm going to click line, I'm going to touch off at that corner, and I'm going to pull up, and I'm going to get that guy and just draw it up there. Now, as I trim that guy off, I need to make sure, and this is another very common mistake, like the measurement thing, is that I need to, if I drew that on the object layer, I need to move it over to the hidden layer. People do it all the time. They draw in one with the intention of moving it, and then they forget. So if you're a person that forgets, you may want to toggle layers before, draw in that layer so that doesn't catch you. So I mentioned to you the other way, and you don't feel like you have to undo yours, but the other way you can do this with the object snap tracking is if I touch off on this line, if I touch off on this corner here for this line, I get the intersect snap. But as I go up, one of the problems, of course, is that there's no other intersect snap, right? It's like, what are you talking about? There's nothing there. It does give me, though, the endpoint. See that guy? It's going to highlight that corner. It knows that that's there. So what I can do, if I want to project that, is I can just touch that corner off, and you see what happened? It gives me an intersect snap, which is a weird thing. I don't really know why it does that, but I know that it does that. Okay.
Why does mine not do that? Mine has the intersect. The next one. Go on.
It has it on.
So like I don't have to touch over the corner. If I just go up, it has another intersection.
Did you draw yours in sections? Did you do a 2-inch line, not a 1-inch line?
No, I decided I do what you did. I decided at the bottom and on the top what came up to.
Is it white or green?
What?
You must just
Oh,
realize
it's green. It's green.
it's green.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't usually. Don't get used to it because it won't happen again. It's lucky.
Excuse me.
What's up, man?
Excuse me. Are you on full snap when you, that allows you
Yep.
to do that?
Yep, I am. Yeah, I actually have, this is probably a good way to talk about this. So if you notice that we have all these guys down at the bottom here, this toolbar, the ortho, the polar we've used, this guy we'll come back to in a little bit. So one of the things that you should note is that that last hamburger stack, or some people just call it a stacker, that last series of customizations that you can do, in here there's a whole bunch of stuff. Sometimes if things are not turned on, like you probably noticed my dynamic input is not currently on, so I could turn that on. My dynamic UCS is not on. So one of the things in here is that object snap tracking. So you can turn that guy on and off if it's not actually present. So it's maybe a third of the way down. You can see object snap tracking. It is checked for most default images. It's on, but if for whatever reason you're like, I don't know why this thing isn't on, that's where it's located. All of these guys that deal with your cursor are kind of over in this area. So like I said, it's this guy right here, this object snap tracking. So if that's not working for you, that's probably why it's turned off. And yeah, then the other reason that that's working for me is because I have these guys on. So, you know, if there's something that I go up to the midpoint of a line and it's not functioning, I need to turn on midpoint or quadrant or any of those kind of things. So, like I said before, this thing should, if you kind of touch off at that corner, it'll give you that intersect snap and you can use it that way. So that's easier. Or you could just trip.